Welcome to Coffee and Regs.
Thanks everyone for watching. We have an interesting quick segment today on position limits and pre-trade. So I'm going to speak a little bit about position limits developments around the world. A lot of interesting things happening. And then my colleague Mike Marmo is going to talk about pre-trade developments, and pre-trade and position limits intersect in a really interesting way, I think. So that's going to be great. So quick summation of what's going on around the world, especially in the USA and in Europe with position limits. In fact, there's so much stuff going on, and I've got my little cheat sheet here, and I've got ESMA's recent consultation paper. So I think that's going to be helpful. The CFTC has recently revised their rules on position limits after 10 years of vacated court decisions, reproposing revised rules. They've finally done it. So that was finalized in October of 2020, became effective in March of 2021. There are staggered compliance dates for effectiveness. So basically, depending on whether what part of the position limits regime you're concerned about, some of these rules will go into effect immediately. In fact, they went into effect as of March 15th, 2021. Others will go into effect 1st of January, 2022. And still others, particularly if you have swaps that you're trading, go into effect on January 1st, 2023. So watch out for those staggered effective dates. Basically, even though the CFTC has set these rules, and we can all get some, I suppose, some expectation about what the exchanges will be doing, it's still important to look at what the exchanges are doing constantly, because the exchanges sometimes mimic what the CFTC rules say, and other times the exchanges decide to be even more strict with their own position limits. So look at the exchanges, preferably in an automated way, but if it's manual, that's fine too. Okay, let's move on to Europe. So in Europe, we've had a lot of interesting things happening because it's been determined by the powers that be in the EU that MiFID II should be amended in many different ways. We could talk about it for hours, but let's talk really quickly about position limits. MiFID II is now subject to a quick fix directive, they're calling it. So for you legal eagles out there, I'm going to look at my notes, 2021/338. That's the official reference for the quick fix directive passed on, that was actually signed on February 16th of 2021. That's important because it reduces the scope of commodity derivatives subject to position limits. So how does it do so? If you have an agriculturally based commodity, if the underlying is an agricultural product, or if it's another type of commodity that has at least 300,000 lots of average open interest, that will be the focus of MiFID II position limits. Now, the MiFID II directive, the quick fix directive, said that's going to happen in February of 2022. But guess what? ESMA doesn't want to wait that long. Neither does the world. The world wants to, in Europe, they want to help their commodities markets, particularly energy markets. And so what they've done is ESMA has suggested to national regulators all over Europe, listen, basically what we want you to do is implement this quick fix directive immediately as of now, meaning be more lenient with your position limits, except for those that I mentioned that are significant. So either agricultural or more than 300,000 lots in open interest. And, you know, we've heard from some national regulators that have signed on to it and that have said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do this. We're going to do as ESMA suggested. BaFin is one in particular that has done so. If you consult the BaFin website and their list of position limits, if you consult exchanges in Germany, such as the European Energy Exchange based in Germany, you'll see a different set of position limits than you would have if you had checked there before ESMA's statement. So look to the European authorities, look to the European exchanges to see what they're doing. Finally, in Europe, just noticed this last week. This is a little bit of a reason why I've got my little cheat sheet here, because I was looking at this today and looking at ESMA's new consultation paper. ESMA last week on the 26th of May has come out with a consultation paper, 83 pages long. It's involved, it addresses commodity derivatives in general, including position limits, also addresses position reporting, which is that weekly or daily reporting by investment firms about their OTC trades, right? OTC positions derived from OTC trades. So not all firms subject to position limits are going to be subject to position reporting. A little bit different there. Also, third thing, position management controls. That's another thing that this recent consultation paper addresses. Position management controls basically require the trading venues to monitor positions on those venues, and if they want to, they can actually reduce the positions if they deem it appropriate under EU law and according to the EU law parameters. So that's a really quick summary of what's been going on in the US and in Europe. Mike, I think we should maybe kick it to you because you've got some really interesting things to say about pre-trade, I believe, correct?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Thanks for the interesting regulatory update there. And certainly I want to talk a little bit more about the operational side. And what we're going to focus on today quickly is the whys of pre-trade. So how operationally pre-trade will help you occur, and help you sort of manage your investments. And really we'll start with the why do you need pre-trade monitoring capability? So as you mentioned, Greg, compliance with position limits require that a firm does not cross these respective limits, even during a trading day. Now, this creates challenges for a number of reasons. Since a single product series could be required to adhere to multiple prohibitive limits and exchanges, and even more from a specific regulatory regime's perspective, such as what you just discussed, both from a MiFID II and CFTC respect. Those are both very sort of differences in the way that you have to approach this, and a reason that pre-trade monitoring really will help your overall process and reduce your risk. Monitoring as of position limits built from daily orders greatly mitigates that risk firms face from either sanctions for crossing hard limits, but also provides other benefits from a trading perspective. The second why today that we're going to discuss is why can't you use your OMS for pre-trade monitoring? Well, you can, but typically an OMS is not suitable for that purpose because it requires translations from the reference data to the exchange products, and then the application of all limits that I just talked about against your baseline position plus your daily orders to properly comply. So that obviously creates unique challenges in the ways that an OMS can handle that. Additionally, and possibly more substantially, it's the effect to effectively monitor these positions intraday. Calculations must be performed that typical OMSs are not designed to accommodate, such as spot effective date ranges, particularly where you have step down limits within those spot effective ranges.
And those spot effective dates are really difficult to track, aren't they? I mean, they're not always easy to do, right?
Absolutely, and there's no singular data provider for that, so not something you're going to be able to go out and source from an external provider. This is something that the OMS must perform and adhere to comply with those limits. Another difficult one is the aggregation correlation. So certain products are positively and negatively correlated to other products, and without a sufficient tool in place to understand that sort of logic, it's very difficult for an OMS to identify that and apply that as well. And then the last but not the final difficult calculation is ratio adjustments. When you have standard contracts and mini contracts where ratios need to apply to normalize your holdings such that they are then applied against one of the respective limits. That again is something not a typical OMS is not going to be capable of handling, and again why you should be looking to an automated process that can apply this and then apply that typically in real time for a pre-trade monitoring capability. The last is why do you want to have control of this intraday headroom for your positions in your product monitoring? Well, order built monitoring allows for intraday checks and response via real-time API that can integrate directly with your OMS, therefore sort of closing that gap that your OMS may have. This provides an investment manager or a portfolio manager an opportunity in the front end office to plan and forecast trading strategy with respect to intraday limits, effectively maximizing your investments for these products that are subject to these limits. And that obviously, at the end of the day, it's a dollars and cents game, and that really allows, your firm to have the ability to maximize what you can invest in while staying compliant with the limits.
Interesting. So a lot of advantages to pre-trade functionality for any firm, no doubt, right?
Correct.
Thanks, Mike.
This has been another episode of Coffee and Regs.